I absolutely love traveling whenever I get the chance to do so, and location doesn't matter much to me either, as I'm completely content taking a nice walk around a local park. However, I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't prefer to stay a week in a different country instead, soaking up whatever unique features and beautiful sceneries it has to offer. Being able to experience new settings and cultures here on Earth is an amazing aspect of being human here, but let's say hypothetically, you've already seen absolutely every location here and that you've traveled to the literal ends of the Earth, leaving nothing else for you to explore. If you want to find new places to journey to, you'd have to set your sights on a location outside of Earth and inside the infinite abyss of outer space. On July 16, 1969, a giant leap for mankind into a distant world located over 200,000 miles from us was beginning to take place, and on this journey to said worlds were three men: Edwin Aldrin, Michael Collins, and Neil Armstrong. The three set off in a rocket called the Saturn V, which served as a launch vehicle for the spacecraft the astronauts would travel space through, known as Columbia, which was the command and service module piloted by Collins. 4 days later, upon reaching their destination on July 20th, the ones responsible for landing the lunar module, nicknamed Eagle, were Aldrin and of course Armstrong, who became the first ever human being to step foot on the moon. Now, this desolate and rocky land devoid of any life is the farthest location humanity has ever reached, having first landed in 1969, and the very last time we've been to the moon was on December 7th, 1972, meaning that it's been over 50 frickin' years since we've been there. However, in 2017, NASA's program called Artemis was started and began launching missions in 2022, with the ultimate goal being to send astronauts back to the moon and establish a long-term human and robotic presence, as they'll be using what they learn over there to eventually send the first humans to Mars. Although we do have robust enough technology to send humans to Mars, we haven't sent anyone there just yet due to many factors, so the next best thing would be to send rovers such as the Perseverance rover, which is currently at Mars Jezero crater, the Curiosity rover, which is currently at Gale crater, as well as spacecrafts. And on March 2nd, 1972, NASA launched their Pioneer 10 mission, sending the Pioneer F to journey into territory previously unexplored by any other spacecraft until that point. The mission was only supposed to last around a year and 9 months. However, it ended up extending to over 30 years, having sent its last signal to Earth in January 2003. And as you can imagine, it ended up making a lot of significant achievements while we were still able to communicate with it. Although I'm currently on the topic of technology we've sent to Mars, that wasn't the primary objective of the Pioneer 10 mission, as it merely crossed Mars orbit, becoming the first man-made object to go beyond the red planet, having journeyed into the asteroid belt, passing through it, and eventually reaching Jupiter. The fifth planet in our solar system is by far the largest, lacking any sort of surface, being almost completely composed of gases such as hydrogen and helium, with an atmosphere dominated by storms. And before we begin talking more about this aspect of Jupiter, let's come back down to Earth for a moment and discuss two concepts within meteorology, or the study of the atmosphere, the weather, and other related phenomena. The first meteorological concept I want to talk about are anticyclones, which are essentially central regions of high pressure that are surrounded by winds, with some examples of weather conditions caused by them being light winds and fog. The second concept I want to talk about are cyclones, which are essentially large masses of air and wind that spiral inward around a center of low pressure. And one example in particular of a cyclonic storm that I want to bring up is Hurricane Katrina. Costliest storm to ever hit the US, resulting in almost $2 billion in damages, having mainly hit southern states such as Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Katrina's life began on August 23, 2005, and dissipated on the tail end of the very same month, and unfortunately, before dissolving for good, it ended up taking down an estimated amount of lives in the thousands. As a result of the storm, millions of people were forced to seek shelter in locations other than their homes, due to Katrina having either completely demolished them, or due to the major flooding it caused. To put into perspective the sheer size of the pack Katrina was punching, we'd have to take a look at what's called the Saffir-Simpson scale, which is a quote, 1 to 5 rating based only on a hurricane's maximum sustained wind speed. This scale does not take into account other potentially deadly hazards such as a storm surge, rainfall, flooding, and tornadoes. Now if we take a look at the scale specifically at the very bottom of it, which would be category 5, we can see that winds reach up to 157 miles per hour or higher, and Hurricane Katrina was a category friggin' 5, bro. Specifically when it was in the Gulf of Mexico. So thankfully by the time it made landfall, it wasn't as bad, but still. When it reached Louisiana, it was category 3, meaning Katrina would have been bulldozing at max speeds of 129 miles per hour. The reason I briefly talked about this example of a cyclonic storm was to give you an idea as to the speed and power the storm's winds reached, the catastrophic effects the hurricane had on people's lives, homes, jobs, as well as the financial aftermath it caused, because Hurricane Katrina really drills in the fact that large-scale natural disasters sadly have the potential to deeply impact the lives of millions here on Earth. However, I guess the silver lining is that it's not every second of every day where deadly storms barge in and wreak havoc, because to experience something like that, we'd have to take a trip all the way back to where we left off, specifically at the gas giant Jupiter. If you remember from earlier, I put a pin in talking about Jupiter's atmosphere and proceeded to talk about meteorological concepts such as anticyclones and cyclones, with the reason for me doing so being to draw parallels and introduce the many incredible storms that are far more powerful than anything found on Earth embedded in the planet's atmosphere. On August 5th, 2011, a spacecraft designed to orbit and aid in the study of the Jovian system called Juno was launched, having reached its target destination in July of 2016. 4 years later, in December 2020, an article from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory was published, showcasing a composite of images taken by Juno's camera, and before taking a look at said composition, I realized I never showed an aerial view of Hurricane Katrina, or any other cyclonic storm for that matter, so here's how it looks like. And the reason I'm making it a point to show this now is because if we take a look at the composite of images of Jupiter's North Pole, you can see immediately that there's many cyclones that look pretty similar to the ones here on Earth. However, when it comes to these 8 circumpolar cyclones noted by the yellow arrows, quote, the sizes of these cyclones range from 1,500 miles to 1,740 miles across, about the same distance from the southern tip of Texas to the border with Canada, and overall, these images of not only Jupiter's North Pole, but also its South Pole are fascinating glimpses into the planet's incredibly chaotic atmosphere, full of larger-than-life storms far more powerful than the ones here on Earth. Quote, with no solid surface to slow them down, stormy Jupiter is swept by over a dozen prevailing winds, some reaching up to 335 miles per hour at the equator. A defining feature as well as a captivatingly chaotic entity residing within the atmosphere is the iconic Great Red Spot, which is an anticyclonic storm twice as wide as Earth, and according to NASA, the winds here exceed 400 miles per hour, far faster than even the most rapid tropical cyclone recorded here on Earth called Olivia, which was gusting at peak speeds of 253 miles per hour, having dissipated almost 30 years ago on April 12, 1996. Now there's apparently been debate as to whether or not English scientist Robert Hooke was the one who initially discovered the red spot, as it's noted that he found a quote spot in one of the belts of Jupiter in 1664. However, in 1665, Italian-French astronomer Giovanni Cassini was the first to discover a quote permanent spot. Furthermore, in 1831, an amateur astronomer named Samuel Heinrich Schwabe evidently made the first ever detailed drawing of the Great Red Spot. So as to who initially discovered it is up for debate, but regardless, despite the fundamentally tumultuous nature of the spot as well as the planet's overall atmosphere, juxtapositionally, the planet is quite a beautiful painting of turbulent gases swirling about, coalescing a colossal and currently unexplorable planet as, quote, a spacecraft would have nowhere to land on Jupiter. It wouldn't be able to fly through unscathed either. The extreme pressures and temperatures deep inside the planet would crush, melt, and vaporize any spacecraft trying to fly into the planet.